Hello, everybody. This is the Martin Squared Podcast, Episode 5.
Row 5.
My name is Matt Martin.
I'm Chris Martin.
And today, well, we're going to do things, we are doing things a little different. We are actually recording from my house. Both of us are actually at my house.
One of the venues that we'll be using to record this podcast. The other one, of course, is our favorite cigar shop here in Amarillo, Jones Cowan Cigar and Tobacco Shop, and Danny Jones very graciously allowing us to record over there, which we're going to have him on sometime soon. Just asked him today if he'd be willing to come on and talk to us on the podcast, and he said sure. There was no hesitation in his voice, so we're going to get him on maybe next episode or episode after. So,
all right. Well, the cigar we chose for today is the Rocky Patel Prohibition Connecticut. This is the third cigar in the Prohibition line that came out at the trade show last year. So this cigar has only been out for roughly a year. There was a broadleaf Maduro wrap Prohibition and a Mexican San Andreas wrap Prohibition that came out 2 years ago.
Okay.
Can't believe it's been 2 years since these have come out.
And what's funny about all three of these is that they don't stay on Danny's shelves for very long.
No,
they go pretty quickly. And the reason, and I'm a big fan of all three. I think probably the Mexican is probably my favorite. This one, though, we kind of wanted to go a little bit of a theme here and go with a morning cigar. Now, it is not morning. It is 12:41 in the afternoon. But because of all the smoke we've had and the cloudy skies, it kind of feels like it's morning.
Yes, it does.
But we wanted to go with kind of a morning type cigar, something that you would smoke in the morning to start your day off. And I figured Connecticut would be a pretty simple one.
Especially this Connecticut. This Connecticut is definitely a fantastic morning cigar. I've smoked countless of these in the morning and couldn't tell you how many times I've been like, oh God, I'm so glad I picked this one out.
Right. Now, I'll be honest, this is probably my third Prohibition Connecticut. I've had it twice before, and I've loved it. I do prefer the other two, but as far as a Connecticut, it's pretty high up there compared to other Connecticut's that are pretty common. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be smoking today. We haven't cut them yet, haven't lit them up, but really looking forward to this. We're going to grab the cutters here.
I'll actually let you go ahead and cut and light it. I want to talk a little bit. Most people, when they hear Connecticut, they're like, wait, they grow tobacco in Connecticut?
Absolutely. That was my reaction the first time I heard about any Connecticut cigars as well. So please enlighten us on that which are Connecticut cigars.
Well, okay, you have the Connecticut River Valley that basically starts in Canada, splits Vermont and New Hampshire at the state line. That's basically what the state line is. Cuts right through Massachusetts and Connecticut and spills into the Long Island Bay up in the northeast. What makes that area perfect for what makes the area so great for tobacco crops is the short summer that they have up in the New England area.
Okay.
It only lasts a couple of months, and it's gets really hot and humid, and it's very once again it's very short. So that makes that area, that soil, perfect, absolutely perfect for growing tobacco. What they wind up doing is they'll put a shade like a burlap, some sort of burlap or cotton over the tobacco. That's why they call it a Connecticut shade wrapper.
Okay.
That's why most of the Connecticut wrappers are lighter in color.
Okay.
They tend to be very creamy, very smooth, and not that much of a bite to the cigar with the Connecticut wrapper. What are your initial thoughts now that you've cut it and light it? I'm going to cut and light mine right now.
Yeah, you get a lot of smoothness here. The flavor is not overbearing. It's pretty simple to start off with, but not a lot of bitterness at all. Of course, you wouldn't expect a lot of bitterness from this kind of cigar. But lit pretty well. No problems there. Cut very well. Construction's great on the front end and the back end so far. But nice.
Good. I'm actually lighting it with a lighter that I've had this thing for about 5 to 6 years.
Right.
It's actually only been in use for maybe 2. It had a problem with it a few years back, and and really haven't used it much since. So,
now I started my light with my preference, which is matches. Took 2 for me to get it lit, and then I kind of finished off a little bit with the torch. Pretty mild cigar so far, but the flavor's there. It's not, like I said, it's not going to punch you in the face,
right?
But it's very consistent.
Now the binder and filler, I believe, is the same on every Prohibition. It's just they have a different wrapper on each.
That makes sense.
I'm actually pairing it with a cup of Caribou coffee.
There you go.
That has a little bit of sweet cream from my last cup. This is actually my 4th cup of the day.
Yeah, I think I ended up with 3 before I left work. And I've got some green tea, unsweet green tea that I'm a big fan of as well.
All right.
So give me your initial impressions. Of course, you said you've had this countless times, but what are you getting out of this one?
I just love how smooth it is. Smooth. I get a little bit of creaminess. Just a little bit of a spice, but that mainly is coming from the binder and filler.
Right.
Dude, I love this cigar.
You know what? I'm a big fan of all 3, and it's no surprise that it's sometimes a little hard to find them until Danny gets some more in stock.
Actually, on the retro hail, I was picking up, I guess, a little bit of nuttiness, and earthiness to the cigar. For those that don't know, retrohaling is basically when you take a draw and then you breathe out the smoke through your nose.
There's nothing going in your lungs. It's just simply you're opening up the passage between your throat and your nose, and you allow that to come through. Now, I'll be honest with you, I can do a retrohale when I'm smoking my pipe. I've not been able to successfully retrohale with a cigar. The smoke is always too heavy. I always end up coughing quite a bit, so I just don't even try anymore. That's probably a practice sort of thing, but given my experience with it, I'll just keep doing that.
It took a long time. It actually took a long time before I started retrohaling any cigar. Sure. It probably took the first couple times I tried it. I may have been, 6 months, a year into smoking cigars, so I was 19 at the time, and every time I do it, I just cough. I'd feel like I'd hack up a lung.
So there's a period of getting used to it that's going to be a little painful, I guess, if you wanted to do it.
Not necessarily
to the point where I'm going to. Well, I mean, for me, I already admitted that I've done the coughing, so I'm I think I'll pass on that. I enjoy the cigar otherwise.
That's a very valid point. So now that we have our cigars lit, we have our pairing of liquids, of fluids. Let's get into the show.
Let's do it.
And we usually start off by talking sports. We're going to throw things up a little bit. Let's talk movies.
Let's talk movies.
What have you seen? What have you actually seen recently that has piqued your interest?
Well, I talked about it in the last 2 podcasts, I think. I finally got around to going to see Wonder Woman, which I'd heard many good things about. Critics loved it. Of course, it killed in the box office as far as superhero movies are concerned, breaking records and whatnot. I finally got around to seeing it, and I absolutely loved it. It's a different sort of female lead kind of movie than what you're used to. A lot of times you see female leads, they kind of have it all together. They're not very vulnerable. They know what to do. They're kind of the badass sort of situation there. And this movie takes a different approach. She's not, the director's not ashamed of allowing her to be a little bit feminine and be vulnerable in certain situations and learn from mistakes. There are a couple times she makes mistakes that you're like, this is going to be really bad, and she has to work her way back from them. The cast was great. Gal Gadot, she's a fantastic actress. I've never seen her before in the Fast and the Furious movies. I don't know which one she came in on, but I heard she was good in those. Of course, Chris Pine, who was in the Star Trek movies, he's hilarious. The movie's got great action sequences, great fight sequences, and something for everybody. I mean, the writing is fantastic. You kind of see her progression as a character and learning, who she is and what she's meant to do. And she has these great goals in the beginning when she first meets Chris Pine. It takes place in World War One, and Chris Pine is an American soldier working for the British as a spy in the German army. He steals a plane and ends up in the Amazonians' home, which has got some sort of spell to hide it, a big mist around it to hide it from from everybody else around the world. But it's actually on Earth. He ends up there and is freaked out. She's the one that sees him, rescues him from his plane falls in the ocean, and goes from there. And to see her really learn what she has to do. Eventually, she comes to the rest of the world and realizes, okay, there's this giant war going on, and her main goal is to defeat her enemy. They talk about in the beginning, but at the same time, it becomes, okay, I've got to stop this war because it's being caused by the enemy, by the God of War Ares. And but like I said, just a fantastic superhero movie. To see her progress from one stage of her training into another stage of what she's learning to do, and she just kick ass. I mean, she could knock heads with the best of them. And the movie's got a fantastic ending.
Does it tie in? Because Marvel does this. I'm assuming DC probably does this as well. Did it tie in or give any sort of?
Are you talking about the singer at the end?
Yeah. Did it tie in with the Justice League, or did it give it any sort of like leeway to a future to the Justice League film, which I believe is going to be coming out in the next few years?
Yeah. Well, actually, it begins with Diana in the present, and she sees a photo, and it's actually the same photo that you see in Batman v Superman of her with a bunch of World War I soldiers, a group, along with Chris Pine. And then she goes, then the whole movie is basically a flashback. And so, but she's in the present, this is past Batman v Superman, so she's already established, she's working with Bruce Wayne and everything, and it's not quite to Justice League events yet, like we see in the trailers. But as far as a superhero movie, it's fantastic. As far as a DC superhero movie, compared to the other ones that they've had so far, it is by far the best one. And I liked Man of Steel. I liked parts of Batman v Superman. I think the execution was a little bit rough. I'm looking forward to Ben Affleck in the Batman if he stays on as the actor. And Justice League looks awesome from the trailers. This one by far is the best DC superhero movie of this generation, and I'm really looking forward to how they take things into Justice League. And as a matter of fact, thinking back to Batman v Superman, you saw it as well. She was the best part of that movie, and that really shines in her own solo movie. So we're looking forward to that.
I know for me, like as far as movies and whatnot, I've been watching Netflix ever pretty much. Plus having a kid, I've been watching a lot of kids' movies.
Sure.
Moana. We've been watching that.
I'm only laughing because I've been watching it. I've seen it a couple times as well.
That is one of the few movies that my son Jackson will be interested in for longer than 30 minutes.
It really puts that stock up there quite a bit for you, huh?
Robots. God, when did Robots come out? No.
Early 2000s?
05.
05, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
Like 04, 05. He watches that quite a bit, loves it. As far as Netflix goes, I don't think it's on Netflix. We've got it recorded on our DVR here at the house that he'll watch all the time. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is another one that I've been watching, but
of course,
that makes sense.
Right. Anything that you specifically have been watching because you've enjoyed it?
Criminal Minds.
Oh yes, love that show.
Love Criminal Minds.
That's fantastic show.
Another one is The League. See, I only watched maybe a couple of the season 7 episodes when they were actually on.
Right.
So I'm going back and watching that. I've only watched maybe like 3 or 4 episodes, which I know for me, I love that entire series.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Full Metal Jacket is actually one that I saw on Netflix, and I'm like, ooh, I haven't watched that in a while.
Okay.
It's got Matthew Modine,
right,
kind of as the lead character or lead actor, and it basically kind of depicts him in boot camp, and then going to serve in the Vietnam War.
Right.
It's rated R, which of course it's rated R.
Right. But if you want a movie that can give you a little bit of the experience of what that was like, I don't want to say how accurate it was, but fairly accurate from what I've heard. I've seen the movie once. It's been quite some time, yeah, certainly good. I mean, Kubrick. What can you say about it? He does a fantastic job with everything.
Was he the one that directed Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman?
That would be him. Yeah.
I remember. I haven't watched that in a while. I'm surprised that it's rated R. It actually should probably be rated NC-17.
Probably so. Yeah.
But just the direction, acting on that one is phenomenal as well. Granted, I haven't seen that one in a long time.
Psychological, mess you up kind of thing. But yeah. So we'll keep going here. I took a lot of time to talk about Wonder Woman, so we'll keep the rest of it short. So as of this podcast airing, we've known about Deadpool 2, for some time, and about the other actors in Deadpool 2. And we wanted to talk about this last podcast, but just thanks to football, we didn't get around to it.
So obviously Ryan Reynolds, thank God he's coming back and playing Wade Wilson again.
Yep.
I mean, there's pretty much no other person I would think of that would.
He is Deadpool now.
He is.
Just like Mark Hamill is, he's Luke Skywalker, but his voice is always going to be the Joker. Mm-hmm. You think of Deadpool, you think of Ryan Reynolds.
Hugh Jackman is the same way. I mean,
Wolverine, yeah.
I know he's tried to do other things. He's done some Broadway stuff, but he'll always, till he dies, he will always be Logan. He will always be Wolverine.
I wonder if eventually they might have another Old Man Logan movie when he is indeed older and the grays are not so, they don't have to color his hair so much.
Well, granted, I didn't actually see Logan. I don't know if they actually finished the Logan character off.
We're gonna have to cut that out because indeed he dies. Anyway.
So we find out who Cable is.
Yeah.
It's Josh Brolin, for those that don't know who's playing Cable. I mean, I was hoping like Dolph Lundgren. Arnold Schwarzenegger would have been an okay.
Would have been interesting.
Cable.
He would have been a grizzled older guy. And mind you, when you see Cable in the universe, in the Marvel universe, he's got gray hair, but he's not, in his 70s or anything.
Right.
But he would have been interesting for sure.
Oh, Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman, yes.
Great. And I follow Ron Perlman on Twitter, and I remember when everybody was suggesting him to play Cable, he's like, honestly, I don't know much of the storyline, but hey, I'd be okay with that.
I imagine that hasn't stopped certain people from playing certain roles before.
Probably.
But that's okay. But yeah, I think Josh Brolin would be fantastic. We've seen the pictures, a couple pictures of him being released in full Cable outfit. I think it'll be fine. That should be a funny movie.
Mm-hmm. Another person, I've actually never heard of this actress, but she will be playing Domino.
Right.
Her name is Zazie Beetz, if I have pronounced that correctly. As Domino. I remember the only time I ever got any sort of connection with Domino was actually in the Deadpool game.
Right.
That came out on 360, PS3, and then eventually on the Xbox One and PS4. That's the only time I had ever had any sort of contact with Domino. So I don't know kind of what I'm interested to see It wasn't Domino like Wade Wilson's love interest at some point in the Deadpool series.
I believe so. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case. But we'll definitely see her there. But of course, also in my experience with Domino is the same from the game on Xbox 360 and PS3. But of course, his main love interest is always going to be Death, and I don't know if we'll actually see that this time around. But it would be an interesting thing to see. You know, not really like the Grim Reaper, only as a female version.
That would be interesting.
I mean, because it played out really funny in the game. Mind you, they didn't have all of Deadpool's able to teleport. They did not include that at all in the first movie. They did include that in Wolverine Origins, but not in the first movie. However, I didn't feel like it was so much of a thing that you had to leave out. Or I mean, it wasn't. The movie wasn't hindered by them leaving that out.
Exactly.
And I get that with the Fox budget for that movie and all the effort that they put into having Colossus in there as a completely CGI character. Okay, fine. Because Colossus was freaking hilarious. The first time that Deadpool punches him in the nuts and his wrist breaks and then he goes on to kick him and his ankle breaks. Oh,
your poor wife. Oh, God. So we also have Morena Baccarin returning as Vanessa.
Right. She's fantastic on the show Gotham about Bruce Wayne as a kid. She plays James Gordon's love interest, and so I think the next season is maybe season 4. I think this is going to be the next 4 this fall. Love that show, and she's a great addition to the movie. She was hilarious in the movie.
Brianna Hildebrand coming back as Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Did you have to practice that a couple times before we started this podcast?
No, I've just seen Deadpool that much that I can remember her name like that.
Fair enough, yeah.
I'm interested to see kind of where the progression goes with her character.
Right.
To be honest, I know she was like a third-party character. She wasn't like crucial to most of it.
She brought some good humor to it with being the kind of the typical
moody teen in the opening credits.
And the back and forth was fantastic there. And she's actually from. Oh, sorry. She's actually from. I forget what town in Texas, but near College Station, that area. That's where she is from originally.
Ripley from Alien 3. Fuck, you're old. Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
No, she was a great addition to that.
Honest.
And her her power as an X-Man was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel sorry for the dude who pressures her into prom sex. T.J. Miller.
I mean, what can you say about T.J. Miller? There's a lot you can say. He's funny in everything he does. He was fantastic in the first one. The gag reel on the DVD, just the back and forth, the number of things that they kept saying to each other, Ryan Reynolds and T.J. Miller, just to try and gross each other out. Oh, I can't wait for the next one on the next DVD to come out. And he was great. I saw him first in Cloverfield. It was the first time I saw him, and he was behind the camera the whole time because he was the guy holding the camera until the very end. You actually got to see, him as he was just about to die. But
see, I thought he was the actual director for the first one, but I guess he wasn't. It was Tim Miller was the director. I honestly thought T.J. Miller was, but he'll come back. He'll probably come back as the bar owner of. I honestly cannot remember the name of. It was something.
It was something very similar to Xavier's School for Gifted Children.
Yes,
but it was not that at all. It's like a female's name, and Wayward Youngster, something like that. But yeah, he's going to be great in the movie again.
I mean, the one main thing that has come up since we've noticed all this, or since all this has come out. Unfortunately, one of the stunt drivers. Was killed in the making, like a couple days before they were going to start production.
Right.
Which is very, very sad to hear. Did you get ash on your?
Dropped ash. I mean, I had it going for a while, and I didn't think about it. And that's what happens is you don't think about it, and then that's when it falls. You think you got a hold there.
To be honest with you, and not to put a damper on the subject, but going on a tangent. That's the reason why I tend to like tap my ash on the cigar a lot. I don't leave it. I don't leave the ash sitting on there because, with what I do for a living, or just driving around. If I'm driving around by myself, I usually have a cigar. I tend to get ash all over my clothes, so that's the reason why lots of times you'll see me sitting here tapping my ash or rolling it around to loosen up the ash.
Right. Well, and I don't tap the ash anymore because I read somewhere online that adds to the bitterness of the cigar.
Well, if you tap it like a normal cigarette smoker would, it does. But if you just kind of roll it,
that's how I do it. I don't flick anymore. I used to, but now I just tend to roll it off just to make sure. But yeah, the bad situation with the stunt driver there.
Very sad to hear.
That's happened a couple times in the last couple of years about stunt people. I don't remember the last movie that was before this one that happened. I mean, it's part of the job, unfortunately. But when that happens, it's very sad. And of course, they'll do some sort of dedication to that stunt driver. I'm sure,
of course. So, how's the cigar going so far?
Great, except for dropping the ash on my pants. Now I'm going to have ashy pants the rest of the afternoon. But no, fantastic. Still very smooth. You really can the sense of the it smokes very well. It's not too much smoke, by the way. You don't get a lot of cigars that you light up and the smoke fills the room. It's smoky in here, but it's not like so heavy that we can't breathe. So,
right. Well, I've got both windows in my office. I've got them cracked open a little bit and the fan going so the smoke can travel up instead of staying down here where you and I can't really communicate much.
This is a little bit this is more ventilated than what we have over at Danny's back room because of the fan. But yeah, so what how do you feel about the cigar so far?
Man, I'm just so in love with the cigar. This for me is box worthy.
Oh yeah.
Or jar worthy because they only come in those glass jars. I think 16 to 20 in those glass jars.
It's definitely a cool packaging shtick, and I appreciate when they can go for an interesting type of a way of packaging, especially with the whole prohibition theme. It just kind of makes sense.
With everything that's going on with the FDA, that was one of the concepts that Rocky Patel decided to label this as a prohibition because it's one of those cigars that is gonna be as soon as all the FDA stuff gets ruled over. I think the last time I can remember talking with Danny or some other people about this, there was some sort of extended stay on the ruling.
Right.
We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this cigar, I love this cigar. This is one of those sticks that if I'm there and it's 1 o'clock or earlier, I'm walking around and I'm like, man, I really could use just kind of a good, easy, smooth morning cigar.
Right.
And I don't really find much that I'm like, I'll instantly go for this. It's like that San Lotano Habano that we smoked
last time around.
An episode or two ago. I can grab one of those and be fine with it. But pretty much everything in Danny's shop, I don't have any sort of problem with whatsoever.
I haven't had a bad cigar at Danny's, and I'm trying. My approach to a lot of different things is to try as many so I can get some variety, and then eventually I'll land back on my favorites. And this is certainly the Prohibition line is one of my favorites. Like I said, I haven't had this one in a while, but I have on more than one occasion come back to the Prohibition line after walking around Danny's humidor a couple times and going, you know what, let's go with that. That's good because it's a good solid cigar.
Oh,
it's consistent. And you're going to get a good experience out of it.
The one I've been iffy about trying that he brought in is the two new Macanudos. I can't remember what they're called.
Well, there's a white and a black.
Yeah, they launched, I believe, either this past trade show or a little while ago. Those are I for some reason Macanudos are on my do not smoke list.
You had a bad experience?
I've had several bad experiences with Macanudos. That was one of the first ones that I was suggested to try when I first started smoking.
Okay.
12 years ago. So, and just every single one of them, I was just like, I could barely get halfway through it and be like, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it.
When was the last time you had a Macanudo?
Had to have been at least 10 years ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I can say I've had both the black and the white that Danny's got. I enjoyed them both. I didn't have any issues with them. Not my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty short list of favorites, but I would suggest trying them. And not only to Matt, but to all of our listeners out here.
I definitely think I may one of these days get the courage to actually smoke one. I think it's...
Trust in Danny. He knows.
I trust him. I trust him. I don't trust myself. That's the only problem.
That's a general thing there.
Well, now we're going to kind of once again get our nerd on. I like to call this segment "Getting Our Nerd On" with playing video games. I know for me, I've only been playing one thing ever since it came out like almost 2 weeks ago. That's Madden 18.
Right? Yeah.
An interesting fact is actually this is only the second time that I've ever been to some sort of midnight release or early release of the Madden series. The other one I think was maybe 2009 or 2010, and that was the collector's edition that they had that year had John Madden on the cover of it. I want to say that might have been 2009. I went to a midnight release party at GameStop. This past time, I had it pre-ordered. Oh God, 6 months ago.
Okay.
And
they pre-ordered that far in advance? I haven't pre-ordered a game in. It's been a while, so wow, that's impressive.
Really, the Madden series is the only game that I'll pre-order. I pretty much won't pre-order. Well, I did have Red Dead Redemption 2 on pre-order, but I was like, okay, Madden 18's coming up. The release date for Red Dead Redemption 2 has been pushed back twice, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take that pre-order off and put it on, add to my pre-order of Madden 18. Call of Duty World War II was another one that I was thinking about pre-ordering, but I don't pre-order really anything nowadays either, except for the Madden series. And even then, I've only pre-ordered it 3 times.
Right.
But, oh God. The Frostbite engine that they're using now, which is the same engine that EA Sports used on their FIFA game from last year, FIFA 17. Dude, that engine makes it so much. It literally looks lifelike. Like the commercials you hear now. The game looks like the game.
Right.
They aren't bullshit. It looks phenomenal.
Okay.
And there's several different game modes. This is the first year ever that they've had a legit story mode inside Madden 18. It's called Long Shot. You're basically playing as this kid out of Texas, which woohoo, wins the state championship for his high school. Gets recruited to the University of Texas. Drops out like 4 games into his freshman year, and then it winds up becoming. It's almost like a reality show that this game is. That this Long Shot is supposed to be. It's based off of some sort of reality show, and just going through everything that involved in the story mode, it's awesome.
Okay.
It was challenging at first too, but then and I've only played through it once, but it was challenging. There really wasn't a whole lot of easy parts to it, which is one thing I was like, okay, this is just going to be something I'm going to run through and then go on to something else.
Sure.
And yeah, I've only played it once. I'll probably wind up going back and playing it at least 2 more times.
Right. Okay.
I
got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you completely made a team on this new game since you got it?
They unfortunately the last few Maddens they haven't had a creative team.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The only time you can actually create your own team basically is in franchise mode. You can actually relocate.
okay.
teams.
Gotcha.
I did that last year with Jacksonville and San Diego, now the Los Angeles Chargers.
Right.
But I did that with those two teams. One of them I transferred the Chargers over to. Where did I transfer them to? Oklahoma City was one spot. Austin was one spot that I could transfer. Mexico City was one I could transfer to. London is another one I can transfer to. And then St. Louis was another one since they lost the Rams. Unfortunately, last year you couldn't change the mascot.
Oh, okay.
Or when you transferred to St. Louis. But yeah, you can do. I remember for Oklahoma City they had Oklahoma City Bison was one of the options. They only gave you like three options you could do last year. I actually have not played franchise mode yet since I got it.
Wow.
I've been playing that Madden Ultimate Team, which is basically you start with a low level roster and you gain through card packs. I don't know if you've played the mobile game. If you the Madden mobile game is basically the Madden Ultimate Team
okay.
Game mode on the actual on the console, where you start with a low level team and you through gaining card packs basically to level your team up, going through different challenges, all like that. That's what I've been playing. You actually can take a certain card, certain player, and upgrade them. You don't have to just upgrade your team through gaining card packs and whatnot.
Cool.
That's the newest thing for Madden Ultimate Team. Also, you have cooperative online modes, what they call MUT squads.
Okay.
Where somebody can be defensive captain, somebody can be offensive captain, and somebody can play the head coach.
Oh, nice.
That one I'll probably never play because I don't play. I've only played maybe 3 games online against another player, and the lag. There's so much lag, and there's just so much crap talking that I don't care about playing those modes.
Right.
I really don't. So usually I just play the solo challenges, and once I get bored with the solo challenges, I'll probably move on to franchise mode. Now with franchise mode, you can do a customizable draft board, which I'm really interested in because that was what I really got into last year. Mm-hmm. I would basically just simulate all the way to the off season in the first year. Mm-hmm. Then I'd go through draft picks, getting my draft board ready. I was so much of a nerd on last year's that you'd have it set up on the screen. I'd be writing stuff down in a notebook on what players that I was really interested in following.
Right. Well, and let me pair that with the fact that I was going to say I've sat down. I mentioned you playing, creating your team on multiple Maddens. I've sat down and watched you for hours work on a team. Something that if I was playing any Madden game, I would see is I just don't have any fun doing that. I'd rather just pick up a team and see if I could play, as is, which is usually the Dolphins, and then usually lose.
You and our dad both. He was the same way whenever we were growing up, and I'd get a game and I'd just customize everything. And he was like, "Why don't you just pick it up and start playing?" I'm like, "Because I don't like just picking up and playing.
Right.
I want to create a new team. I want to create a player. I want to basically live as if I'm that player in the game." So the last few Maddens, 16 was okay, 17 last year was really good, and then 18 this year. There's a lot more customizable things you can do.
Sure.
Now, one thing I wish that they would start doing, and I don't think they'll ever do this with all the NCAA stuff nowadays, but I want them to come out with another NCAA football game. I really do. I don't think that'll ever happen again. But then I also would like EA Sports or the Codemasters that come out with the Dirt series, or Microsoft that comes out with the Forza series. I would love to see them do some sort of dirt track racing game.
Sure.
You know, we've got a dirt track, circle track out here in Amarillo, and I've wanted to do that since I was a little kid.
Right. Well, let me make a comment there because, you know, you talk to a lot of people. A couple of my coworkers are like this. So many people are not happy with the NFL just because of how things happen in the NFL, and they or they just never really cared for the NFL because they prefer watching college football. They see it as more of a pure testament of the sport, and so it's really bizarre to me to hear that there's still not, you know, any plans to start coming out with NCAA football games, because it would seem like so many people prefer to watch NCAA, and therefore I would imagine a good chunk of the gamers prefer to watch and would love to play NCAA.
I think the reason why they stopped was when some of the Northwestern players wanted to create a union for college players. This was the 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. They, you know, I don't think college athletes get any sort of stipend for basically having their likeness being involved in a game. Right. So I don't think they get any sort of benefit from that. I think that had a lot to do with it.
And that makes sense. And you would hope, you would want, if that was going to be the case, if they were going to have another NCAA football game, that the players would get some sort of financial compensation for that. And you know what, the way the system is, you know, you can't get any sort of financial compensation, you know, for all this effort that you put into it as a player in college. You know, maybe it's a system that needs to be reformed. Unfortunately, it's not something that will happen anytime soon.
No, because it's the presidents of the universities control the NCAA.
Right.
That's the one thing that's one of the things that bothers me about how about how the NCAA works is, you know, a regular student can go and take a job. They can generate their own type of funding. Well, college athletes, student athletes, they can't. The ones, and I understand they're on scholarship, but the scholarship and their stipends don't really pay for much.
Sure.
So that's the one thing that really bothers me is they can't go out, they can't generate their own funds by selling T-shirts, or they can't generate, you know, yes, they can get a part-time job, but basically they're working two jobs being a student athlete, especially at a high-level program like a Clemson, like an Alabama. They're working two different jobs. They're being a full-time student and being a full-time college athlete.
Right.
But hopefully something will get resolved at that point. But we'll see. What have you been playing?
Well, okay, so we're both big fans of the Mega Man series, Mega Man X series as well. And not long ago, the creator of Mega Man broke away from Capcom and decided he wasn't happy with the way Capcom was going, and he wanted to make his own on his own, and did a crowdfunding, and so came up with what we call Mighty Number 9, which I've heard some people call it the spiritual successor to Mega Man. And I've been interested in this game for a long time, following it on social media. A friend of mine at work told me about it and started following it. Got the funding, made the game, and it wasn't very well received. I got it for cheaper than market price a couple weeks back. Started playing it, and let me tell you, as far as the difficulty of the original Mega Man games, and I'm talking, say, 1 through 7, because 8, they started to back off on the difficulty a bit. You know, 1 I think is arguably the hardest of all of them.
Definitely.
And 2 as well. But it goes back to that level of difficulty. Now, there's some different things. There's your Mighty Number 9. His name is Beck. He's a robot. He's got a Dr. Light, who's a younger guy. He's not an older guy. You know, his design is a little bit different than Mega Man. Of course, I'm playing this on Xbox One. And so graphics are fantastic. There are elements of 3D parts to the level. Not that you go in 3D; you're still on the side scroller, but like there are enemies on in the background shooting stuff to you in the foreground that you have to do. It's pretty nifty. One of the things that's kind of cool, you don't have access to a mega booster situation at the beginning, and I don't know actually if you'll be able to. I'm assuming so eventually, but right at the beginning you don't. But you do have access to your dash, and you can dash in midair. You can dash downward if you wanted to, which is pretty cool. You can dash actually multiple times until you hit the ground, which is really handy on some of the levels that I've only played through the intro and then about 2 levels. I've only beaten 1 boss. Okay, that's how difficult this is.
Wow.
And this is really bringing me back to those old days of going to the movie store and renting these, Mega Mans on the original Nintendo and playing through hours just on one level, just because there's something here that you don't expect, and it takes you a while to figure out how to adjust to that. The enemies are to do something a little bit different in that. All the enemies, you hit them a couple times with your shot, and then they change into this weird sort of color, and you can dash and get a bonus from them. Now, these bonuses add up at certain levels, and depending on how quickly after they switch to their color that you dash and get the bonus, you might get 70% or 80% if you hit them and then dash right immediately. You get 100%. And these bonuses add up to different actual bonuses that you can have. Like there's an attack bonus, a speed bonus, an agility or a defense bonus, and then one that's called axle recovery. That's like your E-tank.
Oh, nice.
You can earn it during the level by hitting these certain ones and then getting them, and then they add up. And then you can use. There's only one at a time that you can use throughout the level, and if you die, that starts back over.
Oh, okay.
So, the difficulty, you get to the end, you play against the boss and he kills you immediately. You got 2 lives left, but you don't have your E-tank essentially anymore. So it's been interesting.
Does it mix both the X series and the original Mega Man series, or is it solely based off of as far as storyline and whatnot? Is it more based off of the original Mega Man series, or does it incorporate some X?
It's really more off of the original. It's its own story. It's a completely different story, though a lot of elements the same. There's these robots created by Dr. Light, and they help out mankind. It's in a futuristic setting where there's robots everywhere, and then something goes haywire, and thanks to another doctor, I forget his name off the top of my head. And then you have to go out to each of these different locations and take them out and take them down. And they all have different weapons and everything. And like I said, I've only beaten 1 boss. And I went to this boss after taking on the fire level boss, who I still haven't beaten yet. So I was like, okay, I've spent too many hours taking on this level. Let me switch to another one, beat this other one a little bit more easily. And then went back, and of course that weapon doesn't work on him. You're going to have to figure out the progression. I'm going to try I'm not going to go online and cheat and look at the order and everything, just because it's a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting trying to figure that out.
Have you heard that I don't know if it's going to be for PS4, but I know for Xbox One they're coming out with a Anniversary Collection number 2.
I saw it in the store the other day.
Which is only 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
Those are the only 4. I'm like, why?
Well, that kind of makes sense because you got 1 through 6 on the most recent Anniversary Collection,
right?
And I'm talking about the latest generation of consoles, not the PS2 generation and the Xbox first Xbox,
which
generation.
We still both have. I have them here at the house.
I'll be honest, when I want to play those, I don't go to those. I just get on my computer and I play emulation because it's just easier, and I can hook up my Xbox controller and no problems there. But yeah, the next one is number 2. It's 6, 7, 8, or 7, 8, 9, and 10. And 9 and 10 were the ones that they came out on Xbox Live as whole games that you could purchase there.
I don't remember those.
Yeah, I never played 10. I played a little bit through 9, and just because of how difficult it was at the time, I never beat it all the way through. So that's something I'm eventually going to have to get around to. But I think it's a pretty fun game. I haven't had any problems with it other than it's just hard as balls like the original games were. So it's not at all like games are now, where you've got multiple lives. You get 2 lives, and once you're done, well, 3, counting the one that you start with. And once those are done, you start back. Now, the nice thing is you don't have to start back to the very beginning of the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
You beat one boss, you go to the next round, you die. That boss is still defeated. So that is some level of difficulty decrease from the original, where you had to start all the way back at the beginning, or at least you had to make sure you write down the password. It's got game saving function and everything as well. So it's definitely worth trying out, but not if you want an easygoing game that you're going to go through in like 10 hours. No, that ain't going to happen. But I like it a lot.
Also, how's the cigar?
Loving it. This is the first time I've had to relight it so far. Kept it going. But of course, you get on a tangent and start talking, and that's when I have to relight most of the time. Very smooth still. And the construction is holding up very well. Not only the whole thing itself and burning through quite well, but also the my cut, which I've had some bad cuts in the past. This one I did pretty well. How about you?
Actually, that's what I like about these cutters that have the backs on them. You get a consistent cut every single time.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love the regular guillotine cutters that don't have the back on it.
But it's such a toss up if you're not just used to the muscle memory and of going to the same spot every time. Mm-hmm. And that's one where I probably could use the cutter with the back on it, just to make sure to get the same cut every time.
Mm-hmm. I'm still enjoying it. Oh yeah. You have no idea how much I'm loving this. I'm having trouble, honestly, trying to focus on the podcast just because I love the cigar so much. This is one of the cigars I could be sitting here listening to Fantasy Footballers podcast, Harris Football podcast, or just some random music, whether it be Bob Marley. I mean, my music selection is kind of eclectic. You might say.
To say the least.
I can go from Bob Marley to Slayer.
You're
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
But I can just sit here. I can listen to some easy going music. I can listen to heavy metal, drink my coffee, and just stare at the wall, or just be staring outside the window and just be so relaxed.
And I agree with that too. My favorite times to smoke when it's rainy or just cloudy and cool outside.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute favorite. But I'll smoke on a sunny day, no problem. But I love to go out to one of the little lakes that we have here within the city limits and just and sit in my car, roll the windows down, and light one up and just chill out, listen to a podcast or listen to music or whatever. And it's a good chill out cigar for sure.
One thing I love about recording the podcast at home, I've got my feet up on the office desk that we have.
Your big hairy feet are on the your feet aren't that hairy compared to mine, but yeah.
I was going to say the hair follicles between you and I have that perfect hair follicle gene. You have Wolfman hair follicle gene.
Yeah, and it doesn't help during the winter when it's really cold. It doesn't do squat compared to just putting on a big fur coat or something. But yeah.
Sun comes up and rises high. It's so hot, it's gonna make me cry. Oh Lord,
Well, how's the end of your cigar?
We got the down to the last quarter, and great. It's I had to relight it one more time while we're talking here, but holding together very well. And again, very smooth. It is indeed very smooth, and it seems like a lot of it has to do with the wrapper compared to the binder and filler. But fantastic morning cigar, like we were saying before, or just a good anytime cigar.
And if anybody wants to know why our podcasts kind of run as long as they do, the reason being is because what I like to do, what my initial thoughts coming into this podcast is, I was wanting us to start a cigar and finish a cigar inside the podcast. I didn't want us to light a cigar and maybe get halfway through it before we end the podcast. So that's the main reason why our podcasts run as long as they do.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with a podcast running an hour and a half. Now, granted, I know a lot more people will probably,
You ever listen to Joe Rogan?
Oftentimes
his shows
3 hours long.
He did one with Kevin Smith. I don't know if we mentioned this. one with Kevin Smith not long ago that I listened to. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. 5 hours long. I listened to the whole damn thing because it's interesting.
Exactly.
Because
I listened to the one of him and Steven Crowder, who is a comedian but also has his own podcast, more of a comedic conservative view on politics and whatnot. That one was like 3 to 3.5 hours long. I know for me, I don't have a problem with it. I know there's a lot of people, and most of the podcasts nowadays only last 45 minutes to an hour.
It depends on the subject material.
Exactly.
I think. And if you have guests or you have really good material that you record with the guests, that kind of thing.
If you have, like for us, we go through movies, we go through video games, we go through football.
Stuff we're interested in.
Yeah, stuff, and we probably have several more things that we talk about. Eventually, like you were saying, Danny's more than willing to come on. I know Tony Dominguez, he's more than willing to come on and talk about it. Most of those will probably stick with like one general subject, but especially these particular podcasts that go through multiple subjects. Like all my fantasy football podcasts, they can stay within an hour because they only deal with fantasy football.
Right.
NFL, they stick with one topic. But for me, I hate having to put a cigar away, go take care of something, then come back to a cigar.
Yeah, by far.
So for me, I love lighting a cigar, smoking it throughout one session, and kind of giving an overview over how the cigar is and everything like that. So if anybody was wanting to know why our podcast takes so long, that's the plan that we have set up for this particular podcast, so we can get through one particular cigar. And granted, we're talking constantly throughout this. I probably talk a little bit more than you do, so it's a surprise that I'm usually done with my cigar before you. But that's what I love about this podcast. You and I can sit here and talk, and this is stuff we've been doing ever since we were kids. We'll sit here, we'll talk, we'll go over all sorts of different subjects, and dude, I love this.
Yeah.
I love the cigar. I love the music that we have. The vibe that you and I tend to give off in these podcasts. It's
a lot of fun. It's one of the most interesting ventures that we together have ever taken before. And certainly, if you guys enjoy it, if you all have fun listening to us, we're going to keep going. So,
give us a like on YouTube,
SoundCloud.
I'm enjoying doing all this. MC Cola is the artist that does has the music. I want to give credit to him. Give credit to Danny Jones over at Jones Cowan Pipe and Tobacco Shop. And just keep on living, take it one day at a time. And for the Martin Squared podcast, oh, by the way, we have an email account. If you'll email us, if you have any questions, if you have any topic you want us to discuss, any cigar recommendations, any drink recommendations, it is Martin Squared 806 at gmail.com.
There you go.
For Matt Martin,
I'm Chris Martin.
We'll see you next time.
Enjoy that ash.
Temperature rises to my heart, to the root, yeah, to the bone. Wind is still and plants are withered. Desert streams bring people misery. All the water's gone, all the trees are dry. There's no more water, there's no tears to cry. tears to